Yeah, so my plan is to give you an introduction to Pentland and then share the live example we've used in biomimicry in material development. And then we'll do some questions and answers. So Pentland. So before Mandy gives away any spoilers, I will take you through the Pentland company. So the Pentland Group is a fourth generation family owned group of businesses. So as you can see there, we've got about 50,000 people employed worldwide. So we're not too small. 10,000 dedicated retail areas worldwide. We say areas because if you think about, maybe a shop in a swimming pool, that is a dedicated retail area, but not necessarily a retail store. So Pentland Brands is the part of the business that I sit within. So we've got three different pillars to the Pentland Group. We've got a 55% stakehold in JD Sports. And then we've got an investment division, as well, where some pretty smart people make some good decisions. And we've got all sorts. It always surprises me what we've got tucked away in this investment division. We've got a few publishing companies and just, it's almost like the hobby bit where the money is made. But as I say, I sit within Pentland Brands. So the purpose of Pentland Brands is this statement here: building a family of brands for the world to love, generation after generation. And that kind of really ties in with the fact that we're a global family-run business, and our brands and our people are all part of that family. So our focus is on building a sustainable business for the long term whilst remaining agile in an ever-changing environment. And as you can tell from me reading those bits, they are the bits that really kind of run through the business, and they're kind of put into our heads. And yeah, it's the mantra that the business is run by. So our brands. So Pentland is the name behind some of the world's best loved sports, outdoor and lifestyle brands. All our brands have their own unique identities, and each of them is powered by Pentland Brands. Cheesy. We use our shared experience to put into action the most efficient ways of working, making our brands matter to more people across the globe. So within our sports portfolio, Speedo, world's leading swim brand, 100% owned. Canterbury, world's leading rugby brand, 100% owned. And Mitre, not the world's leading football brand, but a really good team sports brand. And again, 100% owned. So as you can see there, we've got swim, we've got rugby, and we've got football. In our outdoor division, we've got Berghaus, 100% owned, and we've got Endura. And this is one of our more recent acquisitions. So Endura is a business based up in Livingston in Scotland, which was started by Jim and Pam 25 years ago. And we have 85% ownership of that brand at the moment. And one of the great things about Endura is they still actually make product in the UK, which is fabulous. We do a lot of team sports out of there, so we can do custom kit for people. So then the area that's probably a little bit less known about Pentland Brands is our lifestyle. And as you can see from this, most of it is footwear. So we have Lacoste, Ales, Red or Dead, Kickers, CVs and Kangaroos. And I think all of those are probably recognisable, maybe not CVs. CVs is a California-based footwear brand with a really strong environmental story, and we're kind of trying to leverage that story and learn from them and really kind of push the product. So we've just launched cvs.co.uk with some really nice products, actually. I recommend it. So that's one of our newer acquisitions as well. And I think just to kind of add into this point as well, by having a full brand portfolio, we're actually managing to kind of weather the COVID storm quite well at the moment. So as I say, we've got brands like Berghaus and Endura who are obviously seeing a good upturn in product at the moment as we all head outdoors, for our daily exercise. Whereas we've got obviously brands like Speedo, where when the pools are shut, you don't really need a Speedo. So trying to leverage a little bit the outdoor and wild swimming that people are doing, but with these pools closed, it's it's a really tricky time for Speedo, particularly as well, because obviously the Olympics is postponed to this year. So what we've really noticed during the COVID kind of pandemic is that this portfolio of various different brands has helped us kind of pull together and weather this crazy time that we're all going through. So we're a global family business. We've got locations around, you've got about 50 office locations around the world, covering UK, Europe, North America, Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. So we've got pretty much representation all around the world, really. So this is the first video. I apologize, maybe just by some fluke, the sound might work. But the reason I put this video in is because I think it really sums up Pentland well. And actually, it's made from a kind of collage of all different snippets that we've taken over the years. And a lot of them are sent in by the employees as well. What as I say, I'll get the video over to you, but basically just in the background, there's just some twinkly music that builds the scene. So just imagine it, and hopefully it will play. If it doesn't play properly, someone give me a shout and I'll just move on and send it to you later, but we'll give it a go. So who am I and what is my role at Pentland? So I'm the newly appointed head of innovation, I think. No, so my role is material specialist, and I sit within the innovation team. Our current main focus is around Speedo Fastskin racing suits for Paris 2024 and Rugby World Cup jerseys for 2023 for Canterbury, obviously. So I studied textile science and technology at what was UMIS, but is now University of Manchester. And since then, I've carried out various different roles, all of which have involved like the sourcing and the development of materials for sports and outdoor applications. I was also lucky enough to hold a couple of positions within textile manufacturing whilst we still had a little bit of it in the UK. And it's just so valuable to work within the environment where the materials are actually being made. I think I learned, the most I have learned during that period of time. So the following slides are going to show you some of the projects I've worked on since joining the Pentland innovation team. And then, maybe we could use those for kind of format of questions later on. So these are our Speedo Olympic racing suits. So these 5 suits span from Beijing 2008 Olympics to the new suit that we've completed for Japan 2021. Some were a great success, some were controversial, and some were not totally successful. So the Laser Racer was our 2008 suit. This is the one that a very young Michael Phelps is in here. And And whilst it was fully compliant to the FINA rules at its launch, there was then a rule change in early 2009, which meant it became illegal for swimmers to wear it in competitions. And that was due to the PU panels that were on the front. 89% of the medals won in the pool in Beijing were won by people wearing the laser racer. And I think that's why it started to spark a little bit of controversy in the fact that swimmers felt it was becoming more about the suit than about the swimmer. And so it needed to be kind of reined back in. The pink suit with the kind of peachy coloured leg was our full textile replacement suit, which we brought out when the rule change came in 2009. For the London 2012 Olympics, we switched back from stretch wovens to a knit, which is the suit that Rebecca Adlington is in down at the bottom there. God, this suit was a real lessons learned experience. This is kind of where it went a little bit wrong. We relied far too heavily on our belief in the performance of the product and not enough on the actual views of the swimmers, who, to be honest, they thought it was a bit too heavy and it felt slow. So even though our test results were showing us that this suit was really performing well, the swimmer or consumer or whoever's using the product, if they don't like it, then they can choose to not wear it. And that's what we got with this suit. Even though the science was saying this is brilliant, that kind of experience of wearing the suit just wasn't quite right for the swimmer. And so for that reason, the suit mostly used at the 2012 Olympics was this pink suit at the top, which was the 2008 replacement suit. So for Rio 2016, we had an updated suit which used the same textile materials but with added compression and seam tape throughout. So we've got, this is the black suit down at the bottom here, and we had lots of taping for core stability, a bit like the kinesio tape that some of the athletes would wear. So that's then called the Laser Racer X. So the larger image on the side, this is our 2020 suit. And hopefully we'll get to use it. It's on sale. We have to make sure that the products go on sale before swimmers can race in them. So it is on sale, but obviously until we've had the kind of highlight moment of the Olympics, we just have to wait really. We've got a warehouse full of suits with Tokyo 2020 all ready to go, and hopefully we'll get the chance to use them. So this is some of the work that I've done for Canterbury. So I've worked on 2 rugby jersey developments for Canterbury. The jersey for the Rugby World Cup 2015, and this was made of a polyester elastane knit. The key criteria for this material is strength. That's fundamentally what the product has to be. When we see some of the images of the kind of the rucks and the mauls and the scrums, you know, this material has to be super strong. As we move to a later tour with the British and Irish Lions, which is the red jersey at the bottom, we wanted to increase the strength even further, but we wanted to make the jerseys lighter, which is just a bit of a tricky thing to do. So we ended up going with 100% polyester stretch material, which is the same that hopefully the Lions will be wearing later on this year, but with the newer jersey having an element of recycled polyester built into the fabric. I've also added on here an image of the English rose, which was developed for the World Cup jerseys. And this just goes to show that you have to focus on all elements of the jersey. And actually, sometimes parts of the jersey become kind of a real focus for like media and, you know, kind of sales launches. And that's what happened with the English rose that we produced. So it's an injection molded, well, a micro injection molded TPU. And it actually became, quite a media focus. And rather flatteringly, Umbro, who now do the England kit, have completely copied it, done exactly the same. So I guess that's a flattering thing to have. I've been involved in various other projects as well during my time at Pentland, which have ranged from ladies shaping swimsuits, which we've got at the top there. When we do a development, we really kind of dive deep into it. No pun intended. Sorry, that was bad. I mean, we even went as far on these images, on these suits, as we took some of the ladies down to Hammersmith Hospital and put them through MRI scanners with various different suits on, because we were really intrigued as to what happened when you actually put a shaping swimsuit on, because the depressing truth I found out is that you cannot compress fat. You literally are just moving it about. So obviously we wanted to make sure we were creating a form that was comfortable, that ladies liked, and that was good for swimming in. So yeah, so we even went to the hospitals with that one. The image on the right-hand side of the screen is a printed material that we did to support the launch of a House of Holland collaboration. I've been told, I didn't see it, I've been told that Stormzy's backing dancers wore these outfits as well. So that's a bit of a claim to fame. I've also been involved in the development of triathlon suits, which has done some pretty in-depth research into the foam technology for the seat pads. Making sure that you've got the right properties for all three disciplines. And then the final image down at the bottom there is Johanna Conter, who's one of our LS sponsored athletes. And this was just to kind of to raise the subject of, sometimes, even though we like to do really long-term innovation developments, sometimes we have to do things quickly. And it was about a month and a half before Wimbledon 2019. And I was sat in a car park waiting to go in a meeting. And the MD of LS rang me up, and he said that they'd been let down by a supplier, and Johanna literally had nothing to wear for Wimbledon. So that it was all panic stations. And in 1 month, we managed to source a fabric, get a new garment manufacturer, create a print design, make the garment patterns, and then create 6 bespoke made-to-measure outfits, all for Johanna. So when she came out on court at Wimbledon, that was kind of a sigh of relief that all of that work had come together. And I think
Can I ask you, Becky, sorry, did she have any particular requirements of the textile as a tennis player?
She did.
Yeah.
She wanted it obviously to be lightweight. She wanted to not notice it, basically. She wanted to make sure that she was kept at like a consistent temperature. It needs to fit well. It needs to not ride up when she's serving. She's a bit of a fan of a very short skirt, is Johanna. So we need to make sure, obviously, that the ball shorts, as they're called, we need to make sure that the ball shorts are made of a really good stretch material that, are provide, the highest level of modesty. So thankfully, the requirements that she had were not too dissimilar to, most sporting applications. So we were able to pull in materials that we already knew about. But obviously, the fit of the garment had to be done, on her. So we had people going up and down to London, and we actually got all of the products made in London as well. So the material came over from Italy, but then everything was done in London, actually at a garment factory in London, which was lovely to use. Actually, it felt really right to use them. But yeah, it was panic stations a little bit.
Yeah. So to say that you got it all done and developed in a month, that was a huge amount of development, fitting, trialing, testing, but really shoved into that short space of time.
I think it's one of those things as well where thankfully we had a lot of contacts and a lot of knowledge obviously already built up. So even though we'd not necessarily developed a tennis outfit for before, we could call on all the kind of expertise that we've used in other projects and just bring it all together. And actually we're still making her suits in exactly the same way now, using the manufacturers down in London. But obviously we do it with a little bit of room to breathe whilst we're doing it. What's great with Johanna as well is they are allowed an outfit for every single match that they play. So a brand new outfit for every match. And she actually kind of shuns away from that a little bit because of the waste. So she's kind of like a new outfit for every 2, 3, 4 matches. It's kind of naturally in her to try and not be wasteful, which I really like.
And is it not so regulated in tennis? There's no.
No, it was only the branding that we needed to worry about, and obviously with Wimbledon it had to be all white. But the outfits that we've done for the other tennis tournaments have obviously had a little bit more colour involved in them. But even though it's all white, you can see that there's print trims around the kind of edge. We try and get a little bit of colour in there somehow, sneakily. So we're not quite at Serena Williams design stage yet, but we're getting there.
Great.
So what I also like doing as well, we get involved in a lot of kind of optional extras, I suppose. So back in 2009, when the laser racer was banned, we had a warehouse full of suits that we'd made to sell. And suddenly, if you can't wear a suit in a race, then you don't need it. So we were not going to be able to sell those suits. So we set ourselves the challenge of sending nothing to landfill. And so we collaborated with a lot of great people, and we created this pavilion. This is outside the Chelsea School of Art, and Burberry used it for a catwalk show. We had garments repurposed by Ursula de Castro, who was then the founder of Somewhere, but she's now Fashion Revolution. And we actually did sell some of these suits as fashion items rather than performance suits, which amazed me a little bit. In 2012, we took all of the offcuts from our Federation printed suits, and again, working with Ursula, we created the Unity dress, which is the dress in the top right-hand corner. And actually, the marketing of the Unity dress during the Olympic season, like the Olympic session in 2012, that outperformed the marketing relating to the suits and the swimming. It really kind of resonated that it was kind of repurposed and, about bringing all the different federations together. So you can see that, there's the British kind of print in there. There's some Australia in there, America. So it really went down well. And then this rather pink image that's in the bottom is we did a Design Futures exhibition at Somerset House. And again, by using pure offcuts of fabric, nothing else, we created a whole range of Pentlum products. So we even made footwear out of the same fabric, just to kind of showcase the range of products. And the acetates that are spinning at the top, they're all the different pattern pieces that are used to create the product. And again, it was just kind of like that thinking and repurposing and reusing. And actually, as I say, a lot of this was back in 2009, 2010. So we were actually a little bit ahead of our time in that thinking, but it means that we've got kind of some good foundations for now, when absolutely we should be doing all of these things. Right, so I'm going to jump on to Project Hero. So in order to explain the depth we go to during a product development and to link in obviously with the biomimicry theme, I thought I'd take you through a presentation we pulled together on Project Hero, which is hopefully will be our 2021 suit. I'm going to try and show you a video again. It really might not work, so I might just kind of show you the end of the video, because obviously you won't have the commentary. But this just explains why our consumer needs us to go to this level of detail when we're looking at racing suits. So what you're about to see, I'll give you that context because you won't be able to hear it, this is Michael Phelps going for his 8th gold at the Olympics. And obviously it was all about, is he going to get 8? If he got 7, he would have lost. If he got 8, he was going to be a hero. So this is just kind of going to show the difference between winning and losing. For a swimmer, for an athlete, silver is first loser, which is a bit of a shame. So this is the bit that, look, this is the difference between winning and losing.
No, it's not. Look. You are kidding me. Look. You are kidding me. They're just showing that on the big screen. That was just gone to the crowd.
How many hundredths of a second was that?
Well, at first they gave it as a tie, and then they did actually manage to find a time difference. So I don't know, it's the smallest time difference you can imagine. But that's like, if he'd have got silver, That would have been the headline, that he didn't make the 8 golds. And it's just like, which would have been a bit of a shame. So to begin with, let's rewind the clock. So the Olympics in Sydney 2000 was the introduction of the Speedo Faskin racing suits. Prior to this, it was all kind of standard swimwear that we see down the pool. So the surface texture of the shark was explored and ultimately developed into a knitted rib material, which had a water repellent finish printed onto the surface. And at this time, we had the pleasure of being able to cover the entire body of the swimmer, whereas now we've got navel to knee or shoulder to knee, obviously for the men and women. So at the Sydney 2000 Olympics, where this suit was launched, 13 of the 15 world records and 83% of all swimming medals were won by swimmers wearing the Faskin suit. So this is where the controversy kind of started, really. The Faskin suit was then evolved for 2004 for the Athens Olympics. And at this point as well, we were allowed to apply 3D surface textures onto the actual surface of the textile. Again, another thing that we're not allowed to do now. And so we were able to create grip zones on the suit for the swimmer to be able to grip the water and pull themselves through. But again, sadly, not allowed to do that anymore. So the Faskin Laser Pure Intent, catchy name, is the suit I'm going to go into detail on. So since the early introduction of Faskin suits, we've moved from heavier waterlogging materials to really lightweight stretch wovens. And I always think it's a bit of a surprise to people when they realise that these suits are made of woven materials. So as I've already said, we've got really tight FINA regulations to work within, which govern the materials that we can use, and the finishes that we can apply, and the garment makeup techniques that we can use. It should also be noted that we need to make these suits commercially available. We're not allowed to make bespoke suits for our own swimmers. Plus, we have to retail the suits for 1 whole year before the Olympic competition. So hence, this suit went on sale in 2019 to then theoretically be born in 2020. But obviously, sadly, it's still on sale, but not been used in the Olympics yet. So to kind of put it into context, we make about 100,000 suits a year. So whatever we develop, we have to make in full commercial volume as well. We can't make something that's, a one-off. You look at Formula One cars, they're, a one-off. But these suits actually have to go through a commercial garment manufacturing process. We've basically got 2 research streams for the suit's development. One stream looks at everything to do with hydrodynamics, and the other looks at the fit of the suit so that the swimmer can perform to their absolute best. So if we look at research stream 1 first, so we do a lot of background research, a lot. Within the innovation team, we're really lucky we've got our own dedicated research team. However, because obviously everything's so interdependent, we all work together through the suit creation process. Again, our background research for the 2020 suit was a revisit to biomimicry and in particular our old friend the shark, although we did find that tuna swim incredibly quickly. So we didn't feel like the tuna suit had quite as good a ring to it, but, I think a tuna could maybe outswim a shark if it needed to. But anyway, a lot of papers were read, and we kind of commissioned some exclusive research for our suits as well. So even though we've looked at the texture of shark and fish before, the main focus for the suit for 2020 was evolving that thinking, because actually the texture and detail along the surface of the shark is not consistent. They've got different properties in different areas to allow them to swim through the water. So we wanted to take this thinking and use things like jacquard weaving or embossing to precisely place a texture or a range of different textures in different places on the body. And I think it's fair to say that the advancement of textile manufacturing techniques has allowed us to experiment more in this area than we were able to 20 years ago. So we were looking at quite basic knit structures before, but now with the new machinery, we can really be precise about where we position things. So this is the deepest basement in the Natural History Museum, and we were so privileged. We were able to go down and examine so many different specimens and literally feel the types of textures we should be working with. I have to say it's amazing, but it's daunting and it's a little bit creepy because you've got all the samples in the jars. But I mean, this is just basically to say it's absolutely massively valuable to surround yourself with incredible experts. So William here, bless him, he's worked at the Natural History Museum for well over 40 years. Not sure he comes out of the basement much, but there is literally nothing that this man does not know about swimming animals. And he's so generous in sharing his knowledge with us. It's a fabulous experience. So on that particular day, after seeing the specimens down in the basement, we then moved upstairs and we hosted a creative session where, as Speedo, we invited in external experts who might have absolutely nothing to do with swimming, but maybe have things to do with flow, or we had some people who make ships come in. And across the different disciplines, we discussed some sensible and some kind of ridiculous ideas on how to make a swimmer cut through the water quicker. So what we basically did was we took a hippo and said, how would you make this hippo swim faster through the water? And it was lovely. We had an illustrator for the day, and she was illustrating our ideas as we were talking them up, hence the rather fetching suit that the lady hippo is in at the end. But I think it's fair to say that throughout the whole process, we use so many different ways to try and draw ideas out. It's never just let's sit in a room and discuss. There's various different kind of ways we think about it. Slightly more sensible and grown-up approach. Once we had learned from the swimming experts in the ocean, we used computer-aided fluid dynamics to map the textures onto a human form, kind of virtually. And the aim of the game being to keep the flow of water passing over the streamlined body as regimented as possible. We need to keep the boundary layer between the water and the body as tight, which actually in some areas means that we need to slow the water down rather than speed it up. If you think about kind of going over the bottom, you don't want the water to be flying away. You want it to hug around the shape of the swimmer. So this is then where we looked about what different textures should go in different areas to control the flow of the water. So all of these different learnings then came together for me to actually start kind of cracking on some textile ideas. So I now needed to find ways of getting representative texture either into or onto the material in the right places. But obviously what it can't do is it can't sacrifice things like stretch, strength, air permeability, and it always has to meet within the FINA guidelines. So one technique that I looked at was a new way of embossing a textile where you take an image and you pixelate it, and then you're able to angle and rotate each of the individual pixels really quite precisely. And that then channels the flow of water over the body. It was really interesting and it looked really cool as well. Sadly, we had manufacturing issues. As I said before, we have to make sure that this product can be made in bulk conditions, and it wasn't quite there. So we're still working on it, but it was just one of those ways where we took something that was used completely outside of our normal remit. This was used in architecture to control light, and we changed it to control water in the pool. So you never know, watch this space, but it does look beautiful. And again, kind of the more kind of grown up side to it, we have to test the textured materials so that we know what the different properties are. And what we do is we test the surface drag of the material. So basically, the lower the surface drag, the quicker the material will be able to glide through the water. So this is a setup that we had at Leeds University. It's not really clear, sorry, on the screen, but this is, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this is fabric mounted over a plate, and then the water flows along it, and we can measure how much the water slows down or speeds up as it goes over the surface of the fabric. And then the second method we use is a vertical flume setup. For various different reasons, it's actually on the south coast of Australia, this flume, so it's not entirely practical, but it does mean that we get to travel a bit, or we did do. So essentially, water is pumped vertically up a pipe system, and a hydrofoil, which is covered in the material that we want to test, is allowed to drop down through the pipe, through the flow of water going up. And basically, the quicker the fabric falls from top to bottom, the lower the surface drag. And it's a really good test that just very quickly tells us how fabric will flow through water. So we've used this Flume to help us set up and design and develop a chemical finish for the fabric. So at the moment, all of the racing suits are treated with a hydrophobic treatment so that the textile doesn't absorb any water. Because obviously if the suit absorbs water, it's going to get heavier and it's going to pull you lower in the water. Swimmers also use this repellency as a visual aid to determine if the suit is good enough. So a swimmer will literally put the suit on, dive in the water, swim a length, and then they'll look to see how repellent they are. I don't know if you've watched much swimming, but when they're interviewed at the end of a race, you know, particularly if it's a 50-meter race, you should see that the water is beading off the suit and the suit is actually completely dry. They can swim a whole length and it doesn't absorb any water at all. We've got a lot of challenges in this area at the moment because the chemicals that we have been using prior, whilst they were deemed safe at the time, because of obviously tightening legislations and the more people learn, these chemicals aren't available for us to use anymore. And so we have to be changing all of the chemicals that we use, which we agree with, we should be doing this. But we need to make sure that we can be changing our chemistry to make sure that it performs as well as it did, which is pretty tricky, but we're getting there. So I think obviously what sustainability is a subject that needs to run through everything, but it's very tricky when you're balancing whether a product is sustainable and going to win someone an Olympic gold medal that they've been training all their lives for. So we have to make sure that we balance both of those properties. So in order to test the full range of materials over a suit, we literally dress a mannequin, harness it in a tow rig and drag it through a very long tank of water. It fascinates me, this tank of water. There's one down at Southampton University, and they literally, it's so long that they had to take into account the curvature of the earth to make sure it was perfectly straight. That's the level of detail that they go to, which then allows our results to be accurate. But basically, you have a static mannequin that is dragged through the water, and then all of the different elements come together. If we were to use a swimmer at this point, there'd just be too much noise in the swimmer moving, breathing. So at the moment, we're still in mannequin form. Research stream 2 is all about the fit of the suit. So for me, from a textile point of view, this is where I focus on the mechanics of the fabrics. How extensible does it need to be? How compressive? How powerful does it need to be? What weight should it be? Do we need extra strong areas because the swimmer's having to pull the suit on? And this is where I work with the textile mills to really kind of hone down on what the construction of the fabric should be. You know, should it be woven? Should it be knitted? Knitted's not there yet. Obviously, it was what we used to begin with, but actually knitting is, the weaving has moved on quicker than the knitting at the moment. Should it be nylon? Should it be polyester? What elastane should we use? What finishing techniques should we use? So chemicals, bonding, printing. And we work really closely with our suppliers in order to create the required materials, because we literally go from very small trials up to big trials where we have to have the fabric really consistent in order for these suits to work on all of our different sized swimmers. What I should explain is that stream 1 and stream 2 run in tandem. We don't do one and then the other. We have to offset them a little bit because obviously the learnings will affect each other, but we don't do one and then start the other. We work through the two together. So this might seem a really obvious thing to say, but obviously we can't create a suit that interferes with the swimmer's ability to swim. So what we do is we do a lot of motion capture and efficiency testing to make sure a swimmer is able to perform at their best whilst wearing our product. So we're basically testing the efficiency of the swimmer. The more oxygen they need to use during a swim, the less efficient it is. And obviously this is where the swimmers' feedback is so key. We need to make sure our swimmers are comfortable and confident, because as I've mentioned before, if they're not going to risk their Olympic gold medal on a suit that they're just a little bit twitchy about. So we perform a lot of fit sessions on our swimmers, and it's a very global endeavor. I think this picture here is taken from a fit session in Japan. I was thinking the other day, I think we probably buy the same amount of fabric purely for our fit sessions as some of the smaller brands do across their entire season. And so this chart here, obviously it's zoomed out, but every line is a swimmer and it's their feedback. And the aim of the game is to take all of the feedback and make sure that all of the comments are green, i.e. positive comments. Where there's a red comment, we've still got work to do and we've got to bring it back. Obviously, we're not going to be able to make the whole sheet green because we have to factor in a lot of different preferences, a lot of different body sizes, a lot of different shapes. But the aim of the game is to make sure as much of that is green as possible. The fit sessions have got another kind of purpose as well, and that's making sure that the swimmer comes on the journey with us. As I say, for 2012, we kind of hid away in a little room, created this amazing suit, came out and went, ta-da, do you like it? And the swimmers were like, oh, what's this? We're not sure. Whereas if you take the swimmer on the journey, they know what you're doing, they know what you're aiming for, they're kind of part of the process, and it's just massively valuable to then the end adoption in the suit, where they know what you're doing, they know why you're doing it, and then when the suit is actually ready for them to swim in, then they're happy and they're good to go. So it's no good simply fitting a swimsuit in a nice warm changing room in a static position, which obviously we are well aware happens. You know, when an amateur athlete buys the product, they literally buy it online or they go to a store, and it is just changing rooms. But with our elite swimmers, we need to make sure that we can do the fit sessions in the pool. We need them to be moving about and performing in the suit so that we can check that the suit kind of moves with them. We don't currently have stroke-specific suits, and that's something that, you know, has been kind of really requested, but it is something that we're looking forward to create in the future, because obviously at the moment we have to make sure that this suit appeals to all different disciplines, long disciplines, short disciplines, and all of the different strokes. So it's quite multifunctional, good value for money. Again, I'll show this video. This is the summary video. There's a little bit of feedback at the back, so you might have to lip read some of the swimmers, but essentially there's some facts and figures that come up. This is the kind of the summary video of the development of the suit.
Compression of the legs is a lot better.
This is a comfortable suit.
It felt great on start.
I really feel like the suit's working with me the whole time.
I feel on top of the water.
I would say it feels like decently buoyant.
Feels nice in the water.
I feel really fast in it.
My body alignment's all good.
It's one body in the water. It's not suit and swimmer. It's one connected piece.
I felt really good on turns and in the water because of the flexibility.
The suit didn't move. I love that part.
The panel in the back is doing what it was intended to do.
And I feel like I'm really comfortable, which is hard to find in a racing suit.
I have all range of motion in it, so which is huge. Huge! Butterfly.
Feels like a My own little super suit. It feels really good.
So they finish off by saying it's my own little super suit, which we're like, yes, I think we'll use that in the marketing. So that's kind of a summary of the 2021 suit. But of course, it never stops. So even before the 2020 suit has been used in earnest, we're on to the next one. So these are just some of the words that I'm currently sharing with our fabric mills in order to build on current and to stretch to better. Sustainability are pushing their way to the front of the development now. So rather than creating something and then trying to make sure that it is sustainable, we are now creating something that is sustainable. We're going to endeavour to design and develop something right from the start that has really strong sustainability credentials. And one of the most impactful ways we can do that is to make sure that we increase the durability of our suits. We still have some professional swimmers who will only wear the suit once, and then they will ask for a new one. So we must improve our newness preservation so that out of the box feels like it lasts a lot longer. So they're just some of the words that we're currently looking at. And that's basically it. Hopefully that's given you an insight into the development inspired by biomimicry. I'm sorry we couldn't get the sound to work, but as I say, we will get them to you. This time last year I was like, I've got samples, let's look at them, let's show you all the different things, and I'm so sorry that you're missing out on that bit of the kind of the experience of like your course, and so hopefully you do get that back. But I'm really happy to chat at a later date, or maybe get you some images if there's anything that you would particularly like to see closer up if it kind of relates to your work. But
I just think the depth and breadth of the research is just incredible. Could you say how many people have been involved in this process, or is it just too many really to consider?
Just too many. I think what people are always surprised about is that our core team in the UK is small. There's currently 6 of us, but it's the experts that we use externally that, kind of are our they're key members of the team as well. But yeah, within Pentland, there's only 6 of us who are trying to pull it all together. And that includes the cap and the goggle as well.
What's the issue with knit then? Why is that not up to performance yet?
In order to get the same kind of compressive power from a knit, you have to go heavy. So at the moment, because a woven structure is basically made up of a yarn that way and a yarn that way, and they're both straight, you're straight away using the compressive power of the fabric. Whereas because a knit is loops, to start with, you're pulling out all of the loops in the fabric. So you have to go really heavy in order to be able to get that power. As I say, these suits are so tight, it literally does take about 20 minutes to put one on. And that's if you've practiced. The first one will take a lot longer. Yeah. And so unfortunately with the knits, because you have to go heavier, you end up with a fabric that's almost quite sponge-like as well. And we just do not want to be using so much chemical on the fabric to make it water repellent. Obviously, if we've got a really lightweight fabric, it's relatively easy to make it water repellent. Whereas if we've got a thick sponge-like fabric, you've really got to load it with a lot of chemicals to repel the water. We just don't want to, obviously, use as many chemicals.
So, yes, the chemicals is an issue with the concept of sustainability. How are you making more, or what are the source of more sustainable chemicals then? How is that happening?
So for us, we can be really focused on this project in terms of our chemical is a water repellent chemical, and there's new legislations in about the types of chemicals that we can use. So basically, we're just having to make sure that we work with the chemical suppliers to make sure that we're compliant to all legislations. So we can't use what are called long chain PFCs anymore, which were the repellent chemicals that we were using on the original suit. They're banned now, so we need to make sure that we're using the correct chemicals for that. But there's also future legislation coming in as well. So we need to make sure that we are using the best possible versions of the safe chemicals now, with a really kind of keen eye on how do we make sure that these chemicals almost become legislation proof. Because at the moment, even though we're using a chemical, it is still a chemical. How do we look at something in the future? And biomimicry and the lotus leaf are completely joined together. So how do we maybe create a textile where we don't need to apply a chemical? You know, maybe we could have a surface texture that is naturally repellent through maybe kind of plasma or laser etching or something like that. So we need to make sure that what we're doing at the moment is the best and most kind of and adheres to the legislation, but how do we make it so that actually it's the best possible version in the future?
So in terms of textile technology, you must be, as a team, pretty much at the top, the forefront of what is being developed. The machinery, I don't know, what the developments of the yarns, the processes. Are there other people doing that alongside you as well, and you're all collaborating, or who is leading this, I suppose?
In terms of the textile technology, we've got the privilege of time for suits like this.
Frozen.
You know, I'm not having to work on something that's coming out next season. So what that allows us to do is we have conversations with the yarn manufacturers, or we have conversations with the machinery manufacturers. So for example, this afternoon I've got a conversation with Carl Mayer, who make warp knitting machines. And so I'm able to have a conversation with them and say, what can your machines make? Whereas when you're looking season to season, you have to go to your vendors who you currently have fully on board because you've done all your audits with them. You know that they're compliant for all of the kind of worker rights and, you know, important things like that. When you're doing the next season, you go to them and say, right, what have you got that you've made that can help for the next season? So I think one of the things that we're lucky to have is time in order to just keep going further back. Whereas like when you're on a seasonal basis, you can only go so far back. Plus as well, this kind of the fast skin project is quite a, I don't know, it's quite a sexy project. You know, if we speak to someone and say, do you want to be involved in this project? They're like, yeah, that'll be cool. Because once it's out there, anyone who's been involved in it with us has our blessing to say, yeah, I was involved in that and I did this, and, you know, kind of capitalize on the work that they've put in for us. So I don't think that necessarily answers the question, sorry, but I think with that time, we're able to go a lot further back. And really kind of research how a material is made, not necessarily just what that material is. And
so how far back does the thinking around the shark skin go? Because it was, 20 years ago? Or? Yeah,
so it was the 2000 suit was the first suit that we launched with obviously the shark inspiration. So probably 4 years before that was when the first conversations were had. So we're back in the 90s now. I wasn't there then, but I was alive then.
Yeah, and was that really kind of groundbreaking? I suppose it must have been, this whole idea of looking at nature, looking at skins of the sharks. No one had kind of been there before.
No, and I think the whole element was groundbreaking. You know, we were covering the whole swimmer's body. So you literally had people on the blocks who were wearing kind of like a full-on suit stood next to someone who was just in the Speedos. So I think every element of it was quite groundbreaking, and actually designing something that made the swimmer be able to perform at their best and to kind of help them glide through the water. If you think about running, then trainers are a massive part of it. But apart from a few kind of little kind of pieces that have been kind of seen, you don't necessarily have that specialist running suit. So I think every element of it was kind of new, and Speedo's actually got quite a controversial past in terms of, you know, kind of bringing out things like the bikini, and the racer back was quite controversial as well in terms of, exposing a lady's shoulders. So yeah, we've kind of been a bit maverick all the way through, really.
And in terms of your competitors then in the kind of the Olympic, performance type of technology, are they behind you, do you think, or have they caught up? Were you the people who really started it, and they've
for
taken your
sure
technology?
caught up. Yeah, we definitely need to be looking at kind of pushing ahead again. So I think, when we introduced the suit back in 2000 in Sydney, it was a bit, gosh, where's that come from? Oh, I didn't know we could do that. And then it was similar with the suit for Beijing in 2008, in that we moved to a woven. Everyone else was still in knits. We had PU panels on the suit, which everybody didn't think was allowed, but it was. And so then after that, the floodgates opened a little bit, and lots of different technologies came in. And that's when FINA said, right, this is getting silly, and gave us the strict rules to adhere to. And I think because we've got those strict rules now, we're all producing very similar product. And, it's time for us to really kind of see if we can invent something new and push ahead again. I think because we've got a background and a history of doing it, I think we're in a good place to do it. But our competitors for sure have got good product as well. We can't rest easy.
So it must all be top secret and carefully guarded.
Yeah.
So in terms of things like yarn development, they must be just getting finer and lighter, but stronger. The gauge, they must be phenomenally fine. I don't know how you even describe the fineness of it. What's the terms that you use for these?
Fine. So we're working in 44 Decitex yarns. So when we have a stretch woven, we have a finished fabric weight of 100 grams per square metre. Which for a woven is incredibly light. It is hard to kind of describe how light it is. I can't remember off the top of my head how many yarns we have across the width, but it's tens of thousands of yarns across the wall. It's that when you stand in front of the loom and the fabric is being woven, you can't really see it moving in front of you. It takes that long. I think we can weave something like 1,000 meters in a full 7-day week. So it's slow.
And elastane is within those yarns as well?
So we use coarse spun yarns. So what we have at the moment is we have the elastane with the nylon wrapped around it, and then we weave with that composite yarn. And elastane by itself would not be able to stand being woven without some form of protection. It's just a bit too brutal a process. Whereas with knitting, you could put the nylon in and you could put the elastane in and then just knit with the two separate. For a woven, you have to have them combined together, otherwise you'd have a mess. Yeah, so jacquard weaving has obviously been around for a fairly long time now, and jacquard weaving historically has been used a lot in very kind of fancy upholstery fabrics and kind of like Edwardian, very fancy. But actually jacquard in both knit and woven is now very much being used in performance sportswear, because you can get your different properties in the different zones. So that's the kind of, I mentioned that what we're doing for current suits and for future suits, we wouldn't have been able to do back in 2000. To find a really kind of technical jacquard weaver or knitter would have been ahead of the curve there. But now, if anyone wants to have a chat with some of our team about maybe digital design, we could help to arrange that.